Definir.
Ok, vamos a ponerlo aquí porque y se ve en podcast.
Ahora sí, ahora sí.
Mira lo que está saliendo. Ok, vamos a ponerlo aquí porque y se ve. Buenas noches, good night.
Ahora sí, ahora sí.
Good evening.
Good evening to some.
Mira lo que está saliendo. Ok, vamos a ponerlo aquí porque we're here at the Sommers-Bausch Observatory. I am Daniel Sega. Buenas noches, good night.
Ahora sí, ahora sí.
We're both
Good
students here at the
evening,
University of
Mira
lo que está saliendo. Ok, vamos a ponerlo aquí porque we're here at the Sommers-Bausch Observatory. Behind us, I am Daniel Sega. Buenas noches, good night.
Ahora sí, ahora sí.
That we prepare. We're both evenings here at the University.
The
Personal aspect vamos a ponerlo aquí porque astronomy. We're here at the Sommers-Bausch Observatory. Behind us, I am Daniel Sega. Buenas noches, good night.
Ahora sí, ahora sí.
That we prepare. We're both evenings here at the University. The personal aspect vamos a ponerlo aquí porque astronomy. We're here at the Sommers-Bausch Observatory. Behind us, I am Daniel Sega. Buenas noches, good night.
Ahora sí, ahora sí.
Very famous in his time. We're both evenings here at the University. The personal aspect vamos a ponerlo aquí. Hubiese comenzado con buenas noches, good night.
Ahora sí.
Very famous in his time. We're both evenings here at the University. The personal aspect vamos a ponerlo aquí. Hubiese comenzado con buenas noches, good night.
Ahora sí.
Very famous in his time. We're both evenings here at the University. The personal aspect vamos a ponerlo aquí. Hubiese comenzado con buenas noches, good night.
Ahora sí.
Very famous in his time. We're both evenings here at the University. The personal aspect vamos a ponerlo aquí. Hubiese comenzado con buenas noches, good night.
Ahora sí.
The set of the question is
Ahora sí. Ahora sí. Ahora sí.
This is yeah, very.
Ahora sí.
I think I'll start tackling, I guess, the perspective. This is yeah, very, yeah, this is true. I think like because the sun is so I think I'll start tackling in this way. I guess the perspective so much of this is yeah, very, yeah, I think it's very. I think like once the sun is a lot of different groups. I think I'll start tackling.
Yeah, they're really just.
I guess the perspective so much of also this is yeah, particular. Yeah, I think it's very. I think like once the sun is a lot of different.
In terms of water,
I think I'll start.
yeah, they're really just.
So much.
Yeah,
also
this is
yeah, particular. Yeah, I think it's very. I think like once the sun is a lot of different.
In terms of water,
I think I'll start.
yeah, they're really just.
So much. Yeah, also this is yeah, particular. Yeah, I think it's very. I think like once the sun
It does not. In terms of water, yeah, they're really just.
because
So yeah,
this is yeah, particular influence. Yeah, I think it's very. I think like
it does not. In terms of water, yeah, they're really just.
because
So yeah,
this is yeah, particular influence. Yeah, I think it's very. I think like
it does not. In terms of water, yeah, they're really just.
because from my soul much.
Yeah,
This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. This is very particular influence because very I think like water because from my soul much. There's echo because remember you're sharing the audio from the screen.
But where is it picking it up?
I think internally,
Oh,
like, because we're sharing the audio from the screen, even if it's not coming out of the speaker.
it makes sense.
Yeah, let me.
Oh wait, we can start again.
Yeah, we can start again.
But how are we going to do when we show?
Hmm?
How are we going to do when we show the? I guess we have to mute the mic or something. Like, how do we do when we show the YouTube video? How are we going to do?
Cause I think.
Let me not
So
share this.
yeah, so I think in terms of we just can't share the YouTube, the audio from this YouTube video because that
Okay.
But I think like
yes.
another video will be fine.
Yeah, that
it's
makes
just like the one that because then it's gonna have a feedback loop between what we say, what the audio is playing. But we'll check it out when we play it. I don't know.
But is it up like how far have we? Do we have to start from?
I probably from the beginning.
From the beginning? Oh, that sucks. Okay, guys, so we're starting from the beginning. And the beginning is this question over here. But the setup is the part that you missed. So I was asking Marcel. Marcel here is a solar physicist. And I was asking him about the relationship that he has with the sun. And if it is, if he retains some of the awe that the sun has inspired in humanity for forever. And what do you answer?
Yeah. I think I was telling Danielle before, I wanted to give an answer to this in two parts. Because I mean, I definitely do not feel responsible for all solar physicists. So of course, as a scientist as well, I don't want to say things here that could put my community in a weird position. But I was answering to Danielle that I think from a personal perspective, I can see how so many people across different times in human history have looked on the sun and made it a very important thing or object or character and their myths and their understanding of how life or even like the world or the cosmos kind of like plays in or goes by from the perspective of humans. Basically the history of Earth. But at the same time, I was telling Danielle that from a professional standpoint, I don't think that we usually approach kind of like studying the sun in that same vein. We definitely think about it in a more scientific standing, and usually we don't look at these maybe more spiritual connections that we might have with these objects. But even from speaking with other solar physicists and myself, we do have an immense awe for the sun. We really do think that's why we study it, at least for us in the field. Like, even if it's not part of our day-to-day job, we do feel a connection with it. Whether people are willing to say that's spiritual or not, we can debate on that. With, I don't want to put certain words into people, but from my perspective, yes, I do feel that spiritual connection. And I was then asking Danielle kind of like that question. The first time he asked me that, it took me a little bit more time to think about it. and I was curious, kind of like what motivated that question. And
So the thing is that I read all of this myth about the sun, in the deities that relate to the sun, and some of them are related to war. Some of them, the sun it's like, for example, in the Icarus, the Icarus myth, the sun is a source of danger, right? Like, there's this saying that don't fly too close to the sun. In the case of Icarus, he melted his wax. He had wings made out of wax, and because he flew too close to the sun, they melted, and then he fell and presumably died. So that aspect, that dimension of the sun, I really don't feel it. I don't feel it.
No.
When I look at the sun, when I'm thinking about the sun, and I try, because it's just so big, it's so incomprehensible, that I do the scientist thing, and I try to think about the equations of stellar structure and the corona and the emission lines and even if I don't like emission lines, but
I mean,
I do astronomy, so
it's part of it.
Yeah. um, and I've lost or maybe never had the uninspiring situation about the sun, particularly because like you're told, it's also a star, and
Yeah.
but you probably like there's a good reasons to be you know inspired or reacted in a strong way to stars themselves.
Yeah.
Just because they're like forces of nature that surpass the human dimension in such a dramatic way.
Yeah.
Now, on the last point, trying to recover that aspect, I'm going to play here a small section of the video about monsters in mythology, and that's because deities there's a wrathful deity happens all across myth, and the wrathful deity has people have thought about it and why is it appearing here and there, and in the 20th century it was very popular, the idea to do some psychoanalytic reading on the myth to talk about the psychology of the hero or of the author, of the people reading the text. And on that note, we're gonna go to Joseph Campbell here, where he talks about the monster, and we're going to try to think about the sun also in that way.
Now, in the Buddhist systems, particularly as we get them from Tibet, the Buddhas appear in two aspects. There's the peaceful aspect, and there is the wrathful aspect of the deity. Now, if you're clinging to your ego and its little world and hanging on, and the deity wants to open you, the wrathful aspect comes. It seems to you terrible. But if you are open, and open enough, then that same deity would be experienced as bliss.
Well, Jesus.
So, I think that's it. I mean, they keep going, but that's what I wanted to show. And the idea of the ego shattering moment, because experiencing the sun as a monster, or trying to encompass the greatness of the sun, the fact that it surpasses the human scale and so on, should be, if it is a monster or if it can be read as a monster, like an ego shattering moment, right? Here we have another passage from Campbell that I'm going to read out loud here. And here Campbell, this is from a book called As the Talk, The Inner Reaches of Outer Space. And he's talking about what he felt, this man who has been like studying and reading mythology his entire life, when he read some like National Geographic atlas of Hubble images. Again, this is like when the Hubble images were the new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this was his last book, actually, the last published book that he did. So he says, what those pages opened to me, in short, was the vision of a universe of unimaginable magnitude and unconceivable violence. Billions upon billions, literally, of roaring thermonuclear furnaces scattering from each other, each thermonuclear furnace being a star, and our sun among them, many of them actually blowing themselves to pieces, littering the outermost reaches of space with dust and gas, out of which new stars with circling planets are being born right now. And then from still more remote distances beyond all these, there are murmurs, microwaves, which are echoes of the greatest cataclysmic explosion of all, namely the Big Bang of creation, which according to recent reckonings, and this is 40 years ago, must occur some 18 billion years ago. The Big Bang of creation, of what did it arise? So this is actually a pretty popular passage from this book, and again, this is an essay that he started to write just reacting to this experience that he had. By the way, just like as a side note, it's 14. It's more like 14 million years now. We know it's 14 million years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the part that gets me from this passage is the violence aspect. You know, because it goes back to what Joseph Conley was talking about, the monster. And if we think about the universe in terms of how much violence there is, the amount of violence is also,
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of violence.
Yeah.
What do you think about? Because now it's not only the sun, but it's also like stellar creation, stellar clusters.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that there's a lot to say about that in terms of how the universe evolves. Yeah, a lot of times I think it might be put into the light of, this very harmonious place where everything is just beautiful and just evolving in that way. But in reality, the word violence for sure is a good way of describing it. It's definitely a lot of interactions, a lot of explosions, a lot of things happening that allow or that just happen in the evolution of our universe. It's definitely truthful. And even like, for example, I'm a huge fan of nebulas, which to me are like some of the most beautiful objects to observe with our telescopes, or even like just pictures of. And if you think about what those are, most of the cases is literally the remnant of a violent event.
Yeah.
And
or like those are planetary nebulas.
That's what I meant.
People call it like they see the smoking gun, right?
Yeah,
like,
and planetary nebulas, and I think forget the name, but the ones that are
the stellar nurseries.
Yeah.
Which is what we have here on the screen on the left.
Yeah.
It's a Hubble picture of the Orion's Nebula. Which we know that there's star creation, which it can be accompanied by stellar collisions, which are all this situation is certainly of an energy that it's very hard to actually comprehend.
Yeah. I find interesting that most of the times when we're talking about these kind of energies, we have to go to the scale of like the only reasonable thing for us is like atomic bombs.
Yeah.
Like literally, like usually when you read about this, it's like, like the order of magnitude of 10 atomic bombs or something of that nature. And it's like,
and who has seen an atomic bomb?
Yeah, exactly.
Like and also the like Oppenheimer's, was it Oppenheimer? Yeah. Oppenheimer's reaction to seeing the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Was I am Death Destroyer of Worlds.
Yeah.
And I am Death Destroyer of Worlds is actually going back to mythology, related to a monster in mythology. A vague interpretation of like, you can think about the Siva or the Destroyer, or Kali the Destroyer.
Yeah.
As wrathful deities. Which, if you think about like the psychological function of the myth, and you take Campbell's word for it, then it's supposed to have an ego shattering effect.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to show a picture that we took here about with the Orion's Nebula. So the Orion's Nebula is up on the spring. And right now it's coming out like at 12.
Yeah.
But in January, February, you guys are going to be able to come to the open houses here at the observatory that are hosted every Friday. And you're going to be able to see this with the telescope. And who knows, maybe you're going to have like some type of ego-shattering epiphany. Yeah. Sadly, we cannot see it now, so that's what I'm pulling from the archive. But we are going to look at other things tonight. I think there's going to be enough time. So
I think one of the things you mentioned about like people having maybe an ego-shattering moment is that I always think about the one of the people that recently presented through our program, Leonie. She had kind of one of those moments the first time she saw Saturn's rings. Actually, she had moment of questioning kind of like how real is just like our capability of observing the universe. And every time she came to the observatory, she would always mention it. There's definitely a moment that really impressed in her mind.
yeah, I mean, then I'm happy to hear that. So because I mean, I like Saturn. So
Yeah.
my specialty is Saturn, and people have talked about how beautiful the rings are, the most beautiful thing
Yeah.
in the solar system. Which honestly I agree. Like what else?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's not you're gonna say. Oh,
No, I mean, not in the same way. It's not beautiful in that way. Like I look at the sun, and for me, like in terms of like abstraction, maybe like psychedelicness. Yeah, it's very amazing to look at.
It's
There's a lot of turbulence, like, but it doesn't have that, like harmony that for a lot of people, like beauty is very related to that, and it really doesn't have that. And the scales that I look at it, at least, I bet some people would be like, no, it is.
It is. I mean, to what extent may that like reaction of it being like the harmony and the beauty of it comes like from the Greeks' perception of
Yeah.
the term.
Yeah,
Right.
that's, I mean, it might be. That's what I'm saying. Like, definitely for me, like, be different, the kind of beauty it is. But I can definitely see why more people, from like a very simple glance at it, or I mean, it's just very impressive.
Yeah,
It's very different and very harmonious as well.
it is. It is very like otherworldly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I try to keep that aspect. Although like it is very big and so on.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. The violence of it's not there for me.
Yeah.
For the sun, I can understand, and I can understand why Campbell thought this passage that he wrote. Like when he saw this picture on the left, probably it was the same picture.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean the stars and like the thermonuclear furnaces.
Yeah.
Like the Saturn, not really. No,
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, remember correctly, like for example, in like Aristotelian mechanics, how they view things moving. This idea of motion is itself kind of like very violent. It's, I think, one of the words that they would use to describe motion, like act of violence against another body. And I think that lingers in our kind of like how we talk about like things that move. Because if you think about like the rings, like maybe in your context, yes, they're moving because you're studying like formation, but for most of us that look at it once, maybe through a telescope, something that's it looks static, versus like these objects, you might see them static, but there's enough of them that for sure that maybe not that one, but another one like blew up and it moved, and there's all these things happening. I can definitely see why it would more easily
think about the violence.
Get you there into there's too much happening.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about Saturn is that we know that the rings are not going to last that long.
Mm-hmm.
So they're actually like a dynamical thing, like an event.
Yeah.
They were created not that long ago compared to the planet. Wow. So the lifetime of the rings from creation to end can be 1 billion years.
Wow.
At most, this is an upper limit for some of the people working on it. I'm working on it too.
Yeah.
In the planet is 4 billion years. So I mean that means that it's not gonna you know, we're lucky to see them, you know.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say that just makes you, I guess, like appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I mean it's rare. I think rings like this. I mean, we have seen there have been reported sites of rings for exoplanets. But it's really hard to detect to really like make a case for it. If we ever had the direct imaging technology, we would be able to see if things have rings, and it will be very interesting to see if it's common to have this opaque rings, because you know, like in the solar system, rings are actually not that uncommon.
Yeah, but
the Saturn rings specifically that are so thick, that are so opaque, that are like bigger than the inner radius, outer radius of the ring is more than the radius of the planet. Like that's I think that's not going to be normal in exoplanets. But okay, we're moving on from this and going back to the monstrosity in the ego shattering of things. I don't have ego shattering events when I got Saturn, sadly. Oh, this is the monster. Yeah, so I put out here a couple of monsters. This is a monster for the Aztec mythology. I don't remember his name. I haven't written that. Anyway, moving on. This is a picture of the Tibetan Buddha. And I asked the audience is if you have any reaction looking at this image. Look at the image and tell me if you have any type of like awe or fear, or I don't know, you feel something looking at the image. And then think about like looking at the image of the sun, and if you have a similar reaction. What are you writing?
Same question.
Okay. So, I mean, you guys can answer. We're gonna read your answers out. But I'm gonna keep going because I want to make a connection here. This is the Big Bang. Of course, this is a very artistic representation of the Big Bang. But the idea of the artist here is to express the violence, the magnitude of things in some way. And you know, I see this image. It is an artistic representation, but I do feel it's not the same as the Buddha.
Yeah,
there's something, and I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, but I would say that the reaction is different for me, but it does get a reaction, and
now I want to end with the Greece Tyson, and the reason is I want to make a connection here with what Joseph Campbell just said in this video, which is that the same deity, depending on where your ego is, can appear gracefully or as bliss, as he put it, or as like this terrible thing that it's like violent and presumably attempting to open up the person.
There's something about the cosmic perspective, which for some people is enlightening, and for other people it's terrifying. For those who are terrified by it, they're here on Earth and they have a certain self-identity, and then they learn that Earth is tiny and we're in this void of interplanetary space, and then there's a star we call the sun, and that's kind of average, and there's 100 billion other stars in a galaxy, and our galaxy, the Milky Way, is one of 50 or 100 billion other galaxies in the universe, with every step, every window that modern astrophysics has opened to our mind, the person who wants to feel like they're the center of everything ends up shrinking. And for some people, they might even find it depressing. I assert that if you were depressed after learning and being exposed to the cosmic perspective, you started your day with an unjustifiably large ego. You thought more highly of yourself than, in fact, the circumstances deserved. So here's what you do. You say, I have no ego at all. Let's start that way. I have no ego. No cause to puff myself up. Now let's learn about the cosmic perspective. Yeah, we're on a planet that's orbiting a star, and a star is an energy source, and it's giving us energy, and we're feeling this energy, and life is enabled by this energy in this star. And by the way, there's 100 billion other stars that have other planets, and there might be other life out there. Could be like us, it's probably not like us, but whatever it is, it'd be fascinating to find out who it is. Can we talk to them? Can we not? Are they more advanced? Are they less advanced? By the way, the atoms of our body are traceable to what stars do. And all you can do is sit back and bask in your relevance to the cosmos. So those who see the cosmic perspective as a depressing outlook, they really need to reassess how they think about the world. Because when I look up in the universe, I know I'm small, but I'm also big. I'm big because I'm connected to the universe, and the universe is connected to me.
So there you have it. How do you think how Neil says?
I think it talks to a lot of people that I think in some way are scared of venturing beyond kind of like, I guess what is common for us on a day-to-day, especially like when you look outside and see kind of like how the universe behaves, be it violent or not. Yeah, I think it's interesting his point of view of like, you know, a lot of people do that and then they go, well, I'm small, I'm just insignificant in this whole thing. He has another perspective of it, and that's interesting in some way. I definitely still think that, yeah, maybe it has to do with what you mentioned before, that, you know, kind of depends a lot on perspective or how your ego is at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a big similarity, that like Neil says, it can be terrifying or good. And Campbell says, you know, it can be a bliss or also terrifying.
Yeah.
But there's an important difference, which I think this is what makes all the difference in terms of if it's spiritual or not, to an extent.
Yeah.
Is that the experience? I mean, and you can read this in Joseph Campbell elsewhere, that the facing the monster in this like bigger thing can be placed there to cause surrender.
I see.
Okay, so that is like surrender to the powers to be that are bigger than you.
Yeah.
Which I mean, nature is obviously, like we're saying, bigger than us. Surrender to the fact that an asteroid can come and blow up the Earth, right? And if that doesn't happen, the star can blow. And if that doesn't happen, whatever, like gamma ray from you know. So that's part of what the monster should like. When you surrender, then it comes as bliss. And there is, I mean, I think there's something there, like in the experience that Neil is talking about. There's something that's almost that.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's feeling small, yes, but maybe also feeling like kind of powerless.
Yeah.
Definitely. But it hasn't been spiritualized. Like you have people having the experience. This experience might be common, and then like compare it to like the idea of like surrendering, putting your life in the hands of God or whatnot, and then try to use that experience of feeling small in front of universe as an spiritual experience, right? Because I don't think that Neil there is talking it really as an spiritual experience.
No, I think that also plays a lot in terms of like, what we as scientists do. And I think in the eyes of a lot of people, it's like kind of like problematic because kind of like faces face to face where comes face to face to what a lot of belief systems or religions kind of like use to make people kind of like surrender. And I think it's I hadn't think about it like that in terms of kind of like the fact that if something is spiritual, it'll kind of like it has the possibility or will inevitably kind of like play into that.
I mean, of course, the surrendering, the idea of surrendering is understanding that there's powers, that exceed the human scale, which was true for the people that didn't know about astronomy. They just saw the thunder and saw the floods. And they were terrified. And if you open up the world even more, it should be even more terrifying, right? And I think that seeing the sun as a monster, or stellar nurseries, or the Big Bang, or whatnot, can be accompanied by that spiritual reflection. And the like what Neil's deGrasse Tyson story can also be accompanied by. It's usually not accompanied, but it could be. Again, I want to close this monster, the sun, the monster chapter. And I'm going to advance from the scary image and go to this book. So this is the second part is going to be shorter. Rodolfo Kusch was an Argentinian philosopher and anthropologist. And like many such academics, escaped the country during the dictatorship. Now he knew a village in the southern Peru Andes that he has been, interested in, and he knew people there, and he went and stayed there, and he stayed there for more than 10 years. He lived there. It was a Quechua town, you speak Quechua there, and I mean, it is not like it's a town. It's not like how can I say it? It is not like off the grid completely.
I think most people think of like a village, secluded, and this isn't like an actual functioning.
But it's still more like all Quechua speakers and so on. Anyway, so he lived there, and then he wrote this book called America Profunda, which means like deep America. And he's going to talk about the philosophy. He's going to put into written form, but it's oral transmission, and also put into written form and like in the language of philosophy of the time, in the language of Latin American philosophy of the time. Regarding what the view world was and is probably, I mean, nothing has changed that much. There's like 5 million Quechua speakers still, and where was I going? Yeah. It's considered, this book is considered one of the canons of Latin American philosophy. Okay. Although it has been criticized by romanticizing, I don't think he romanticizes, like romanticizing the autochthonous people of the continent. I really don't think he does much romanticizing.
Okay.
I think that the reader can romanticize. But what he does do, and this is its major criticism, is that he puts this worldview in opposition to the European. And that's that's a little bit like playing to the good savage versus civilization, which is a thing that we should have overcome by now. But anyway, he does that. Okay, so moving on from who Kush was and what he did, the important thing about the Quechuas, which is the people that he studied, is that they had an emphasis on their surroundings, and we know like they have. I'm sorry if I'm speaking in past. They have a deep connection with the earth.
Yeah.
But it's not only with like. There's also a deep connection to the Andes.
Yeah.
Where they are.
Yeah.
To that earth.
Yeah.
And the way he puts it, and I think this is very eloquent and very, very like easy for Spanish speakers to understand, is their word for being, which is kai. It is emphasizes more the being in a place, which in Spanish has its own word, estar. More than being someone or something, which in Spanish has its own word, ser. But this is my translation of him, but more or less in his book, he says, the Quechua way of being, forma de ser, emphasizes the being there, estar, over the being someone, ser. Indeed, the Quechua word for being, kai, emphasizes the word itself, emphasizes estar more than ser, like it's used more in that context. In stories where they're confronted with the divine wrath, normally the story goes that they withstand the disaster by staying in place, right? So it's like a sort of like staying in place and being resilient against the adverse situations.
Yep.
So they're like, I would call them super sedentary, because even if things go bad, they will stay. And anyway, this is his account. This is his account. Remember that even if he was part of the community and he got accepted into that community, he still was raised in Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
But this is what I think of. Let me start in terms of thinking about this passage here. I live in the Andes, and I've had a feeling, because particularly the valley where Merida, which is the city I lived in, it's a proper valley.
Yeah.
So you're surrounded by mountains, and I say proper valley because we're in Boulder, and it's not a valley technically, but there's an horizon to the east. It's very flat. In Merida, there's no horizon. There's no horizon around. And I did feel like enclosed, and I also felt like I wanted to stay there. I felt like I wanted to stay there forever. I got that, and I made the decision not to. But I did feel that like alluring and kind of like claustrophobic sensation of being surrounded by the mountains.
Yeah.
What do you? Oh! I want to show a picture here. This is a picture of Merida. I mean, over in the valley, right? Like if you follow that mountain, you're gonna end up in the town.
That's a beautiful picture.
It's a good picture. So, what do you think about the passage?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and And in terms of kind of like landscape playing a role, I'm thinking, you know, I'm from Puerto Rico, and I'm thinking about how water can also kind of like make that same feeling of, interestingly enough, it can make a feeling of escape, but it also, for many people, will create a feeling of enclosement.
Like
Because
wanting to stay.
I mean, at the end, like who has resources to kind of like, you know, get out of water, go through water? Just a few people. So for most of us, the water is like, yeah, it encloses you, and yeah, there is a strong feeling of you're here, you're born here, and you have to stay here because this is your piece of, you know, the world and what's important. And you know, a hurricane comes and destroys the island, and people will try to stay there. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Right?
it's yeah. I was just thinking about that, like as we were talking about this.
Yeah.
And you know, it's same as you. Like I had the had to make the decision that, you know, like can no longer stay there. Like, but yeah, for I think most of my life I was like, this is it. This
I mean, that's yeah, like the island effect, right?
yeah,
That's
exactly. It's
interesting.
you hear it as the island effect. That's true.
It's you know, it may be because it's an island, but I grew up in the north of Venezuela in the Caribbean coast.
Yeah.
And I living is always in the mind of the youth.
Yeah. No, and
You know, and it's a big city, you know, so it's not living to the city. It's like going out there.
yeah.
So yeah, the mentality, and I was surprised because I did my high school in Maracaibo, which is in the Caribbean, and then I did my college in Merida, and everybody in Maracaibo was like, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah.
And then when I go to Merida, everybody was like, I'm gonna stay. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. And,
yeah.
And I don't know. I think about like in terms of like the people that were living in these islands before kind of like Western civilization came into place. It was like that. You wouldn't stay maybe in your island forever. There was a lot of like transportation happening between the Caribbean and yeah, I think that it's interesting though, because it's like in the one sense, like you definitely need to get out of the island. Resources are limited, but at the same time, like who gets to leave the island? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's I think it's an interesting case of where landscape makes you have to leave and also makes you stay. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just thinking about me.
Yeah. I mean, we honestly don't know to what extent this super sedentary vision of the casualty is related to the mountains. I just think it is. I'm just saying without any type of like expertise that it's related. And that brings me to space. Because I mean, maybe not you, Marcelo, but certainly like a lot of, say, Europeans in the 19th century will go to ports and beaches and they will imagine an adventure. Yes. They will see the unknown in the horizon. What lies beyond the horizon, right? And a lot of stories about like Treasure Island, Robert Louis Stevenson were written.
Gulliver's Travels, for example. As well.
Yeah, and then you have the adventure of your life.
Yeah.
So that's certainly a recurring narrative that happened. It still happens, but not. But the thing is that now it happens in this context.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is the other parallelism I want to do with stargazing and exploring space. Well, looking at the sky is the idea of exploration.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And maybe you see a Milky Way like this dude, or you see the stars that you can see tonight, or aren't that many.
Yeah, I mean we have our night zone, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you see the night sky and you ask yourself what's out there.
You see the moon at least.
Yeah. You ask yourself what's out.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe if you could, if you had the resources and the technology existed, you would go on a spaceship and live the pirate life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get that feeling?
From looking at space?
Yes.
I mean, you know, I definitely grew up on this. I grew up watching not only like, you know, the popular ones like Star Wars and Star Trek, but also you know, I'm a huge fan of anime, so stuff like Cowboy Bebop and all this other shows that were just like exploring it. And I think as a kid, that was very important and me wanting to learn more. But maybe the island effect on a global scale. For me, if I look at space, I'm interested to understand how it works, but I'm not thinking I want to go there, because for me it's like maybe it's just the same thing. It's like so unrealistic, but given the opportunity to be a space pirate and go into space, my inner kid will say yes, of course. Like, that was a fantasy for me as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, I actually do get that feeling with this image.
Yeah.
And I've always like want to go on a boat and just go towards the horizon, you know.
No, yeah.
It's just like very, very heavily. Like every time I'm in the coast, I wonder what it seems to be some sort of freedom that I don't know.
Yeah, no,
right?
It's like, I think it's like literally like the detachment of land is just like just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in boats, so and as you move away, it's a wonderful feeling. So I imagine that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, lots of words. It is there.
It is, yeah, but for me, it doesn't happen with this image at all.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you think it plays the role of like kind of like the impossibility of it, or do you think it's more fundamental than that?
I think it's more fundamental because you can imagine away the impossibilities. Right?
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
Maybe it's like I really like the water. I don't know, but there's something about space exploration, like this type of like adventurous space exploration that it's not that it's not alluring, you know. I consume those stories all the time, but it's not it doesn't inspire the same reaction.
No, yeah.
As
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. And for me, maybe for me it's not as fundamental, but it's the same thing. It's like I cannot look at space and outside of really like a deep fantasy, I cannot see myself going out there, especially because I don't know, maybe it's maybe again like very very superficial here myself. Doesn't look as colorful either. It's like it doesn't feel, because you're like in the ship and but you talk about possibilities, but really like the planets, which we're gonna go into 9-10 because we started and we're gonna show Jupiter. Where's Jupiter? Yeah, we're gonna show Jupiter. I mean, we have a spacecraft in Jupiter. Yeah,
like space exploration doesn't necessarily need to mean
no
manned.
Yeah,
we are going to go to Mars.
Yes.
So I mean, it's not like getting on a ship and going to Mars. It's not really impossible.
No, yeah. Right now it's
I mean, we're not gonna do it, but we could like realistically participate in sending probes to places. And so it's not that distant, but I don't get the same. I mean, it is super interesting. Look, I work on the Cassini mission, which was a space probe that was sent to to Saturn,
Yeah.
and then in 2018. So it's not that I don't find it interesting. I don't get the same feeling. It's not the same. It's for me. It's not the same as C.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that like the fact that I was talking to you like off camera about like Treasure Planet, right?
Yeah.
So like it's very clearly that in the landscape of narratives, the space narrative has like mimicked the exploring the sea narrative. So for a lot of authors and a lot of creative people, it does have that effect. It does have the exact, like almost the same effect.
No, yeah.
But for me, it's two different things. I can't like, I wouldn't say that one is better than the other one. I just don't want to jump into the horizon.
Yeah.
But it's not the same. It's not. I don't know how to describe it. It's just, I'm just as not being Robert Louis Stevenson Treasure Island. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't.
So we're gonna show like I just said. We're gonna do some.
I'm gonna hit the lights.
Some tiny space exploration. Going to Jupiter. You're gonna see the picture of Jupiter and answer the question if you wanna go there. It's I mean you can go to the moons realistically. Could happen like in the next 100 years. Okay, so I'm gonna slew the telescope. This is a telescope moving in the sky. Right, the aim of the telescope is moving. And Jupiter is a very bright object, so I'm gonna show the exposure time. And I hope the camera is. Last open house I used this to take pictures.
On the camera, not the
Okay. I also need to change the filter. I'm gonna start right. It may saturate the image.
Very good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, let's see. We don't know how the focusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how bad it is. So you see, so just do it by hand.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna be taking pictures in sequence.
Do you want to do it with the grid or just literally?
What do you mean? No. It's just yeah. So I'm just taking pictures in sequence. He's gonna move the eyepiece position and get things in focus. And he's looking at this image while he does this.
I'm gonna start going out.
Okay. That's the way.
It's not moving.
No, but the picture is. Are you moving the other way?
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe it was maxed
all the
out.
way out. Yeah. So
Going. Yeah, it got a little bit better. It was just atmosphere motion.
Yeah.
What's going on? Yeah, getting there. Wait. You
probably pass it.
You passed it, yeah.
Get stuck.
Yeah.
I go slow.
But
That's weird.
I wonder if you guys probably can.
Okay, that's got better and there got better.
Telescope is also moving, which is very weird.
Yeah.
If you guys can see. Pero desconéctalo. ¿Ya lo desconectaste? Hey, bueno, se enfocó por un momento. Hey guys, we're having some technical problems here. We're having some technical problems with the focuser. I've never seen that happen in my life.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You get one of them. Because I have to disconnect it.
We're gonna try one more time. We have an archive, pictures of Jupiter in archive, so worst case, we show that, but we wanted to take one live.
Let me just get my phone.
If you ask me, I think that the problem, this is all fault of the automatic focuser. All right, let's start doing this. The moon is leaving. Also Saturn. Say like to Saturn.
That's not even moving.
Try it again.
Hmm?
Yeah, okay. It's not moving.
No, it's not. I mean, it's not making any connection here.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna show you an archive picture that we have. And we have to get this fixed. You know, because both telescopes broke at the same time, the same way, I'm almost sure it has to do with the software here.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is not what we took today because there are a lot of focus. Yeah, that's okay. This is what happens when you save absolutely everything.
Eventually.
0.01. Come on. There you go. So this is a picture of Jupiter. It's a nice one.
Yeah.
That is a nice one. You can clearly see, you can barely see 3 moons here. So this is Io, probably Callisto in Europa.
Mm-hmm.
But you can clearly see the red band in the equator. And you can at least see at least 2 bands. Yeah. I mean, we know what Galileo thought when he saw this. It wasn't violence or ego shattering. I mean, I guess it was, I don't think it was ego shattering because he called one of the moons me.
Yeah.
Io.
Yeah.
But it was, we're not the center. But for that, it wasn't a problem for him. It was a problem for the church.
Yes.
So yeah, the not being the center framework of the ego, the ego shattering moment, which is what Neil has. It talks about. I don't think that it's always about not being. People are not going around thinking that they're the center. I
but
think,
it's
yeah.
society or humankind at large, maybe.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. That's true. Well, guys, we will leave you with this picture of Saturn. And I hope you enjoy this talk.